Speed.
So basically, before you load it, you have to look at a few things on the magazine, on the canister, to make sure you've got the right stuff. 72 is gonna denote 16, and if it were 35, it would say 52. And then this number here is gonna be the stock. So this is what color, temperature, and speed it is. So there's 500 tungsten, 200 tungsten, 13, 19, or 1913, right? Here, especially if you're shooting expired film, you see how after the 16 it says 1R? R stands for registration, which are the holes in it. And the older film has 2, so if you buy expired stock, sometimes it can say 2R here, which if you're shooting Super 16 means there's going to be a hole through a little bit of the negative area. So that's basically the most only relevant thing when it's negative, when it's expired. Otherwise, you know, you might change the exposure base, but that's totally up to you. Now, when you open the film, whether it's a daylight spool or it's these things, see, it's gonna have this like that. So when you're inside the changing tent, you're just gonna peel off that sticker there. You can throw it away. Film's gonna be inside a black bag here. Inside the bag, inside the changing tent, you can take the film out, set it to the side. You're gonna keep the bag because you need it later. Right? So that's done. The bag's big enough that you can push all these things to the side as you're doing it, right? This is about how big the film is gonna be. Maybe this is about 400 feet here.
That's standard.
This is a standard 400 foot load.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little more, 10 minutes, 10, 11 minutes, depending on how much. There's only going to be one set of perforations, right? 1R.
Yeah.
1R.
Yep.
And that's how you can tell that it's Super 16. It needs to have that one set of perforations on it.
Yeah. 2R would be the 35 you're saying.
2R would be either 35
Yeah.
or old 16 stock. And sometimes high-speed stock, you can still get 500 that has 2 perforations on, you know, on either side of it, and that can lead to some issues. So it's just something to be aware of, because you know, you could order it off the internet by accident without looking at it, because the high-speed stock needs both to be stable when it's being pulled down at high speed. So you set that to the side, set that to the side. Then, this is an Aaton LTR, XTR, and also the 416. All pretty much have the same loading style, threading on this. 416, the difference is the door comes off. And you just put it to the side, and then when you're done, the door goes in. On this one, the door is attached on a hinge, but it'll be the same, so you can use this method for both of them.
Gotcha.
Okay. So you can see it there, right? Okay, so this is the feed side. It's got a little mechanical arm here to show you analog how much footage there is, and that's on a spring arm. So you'll have to set the spring arm back like that and then lock it, otherwise the door won't close.
Right.
Okay. These little spring-loaded arms hold the canister in place, the core. So you want them to be in. Sometimes these have a tendency to crack or to jam, or only one arm works, and you'll find that a lot. It's hard to find replacements for them. Sometimes only one will eject, but basically as long as the film is snug on this, it's pretty good. So, there's going to be a little tiny piece of tape here. You can peel that off and either keep it or throw it away. It's going to be the same number as is right here, which is the emulsion and the batch number. But you're going to have that written lots of other places. So, button goes in, film goes on. All right, push that. See how they lock it into place. All right. Then it goes in this little feed. Okay. So that's it on the feed side. It's pretty easy. That's really the only part that has to be done in the dark. Latch it, and then we engage that. And see, I've already run a little bit of film when I was doing this before. So instead of 400, it's 350. That's an analog one. Okay. Now, this is the take-up side, and it's also got the threading on it. So that one opens opens up more because I got a little bit more to do here. You can see this guy doesn't really work super well. Okay. Catch your film here, and if it's not poking out, you haven't shoved enough through. So you can just go back over in the dark room, in the dark bag, and feed a little more. Just gonna pull some out. Now what happens is, it goes through these guys, out here. This is where it's exposed to the pressure plate, and the aperture plate comes back in, loops through there, goes under like that, comes around like this. And this whole system is all interlinked by this little belt here, and that's connected to the magnetic drive on the other side, which are those little gold discs in a circle that we saw, right? So the way that I find it's easiest to do it is to push these. You gotta open them. And there's teeth here, right? So these are gonna engage on the teeth, and then you're gonna lock it in place. And what that's gonna do is maintain a constant loop size. Okay. There's a little slot up there. I'm just gonna push this, try and get it in. You see how that goes? Just a little hole, right? It's pretty easy. Once I've got it through there, I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna feel to make sure the teeth are lined up. Okay. See how it's all linked? If you move any part, it's connected by the belt.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pull a little bit out, push it back through on this side. Trying to find the little stupid hole that it goes in. Okay, comes through here. Now this is where we're going to make our loop, which is, depending on the finger size, roughly 2 fingers.
Yeah.
I put too much in there.
Can I just make a quick adjustment
Yeah,
with
go
this
ahead.
camera? I think
Don't see anything?
cropping you out a little bit.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's okay. Want me to move back?
One second. No, I'm just going to adjust on. That's actually perfect.
Push it through
Okay.
here. That's fine.
Yeah.
Want to be able to see it. Okay. It's roughly 2 fingers, or 12, 13 perforation holes. Right, registration. So what we do is we put your fingers in there.
Yeah.
See, there's a loop, right? So in order to maintain this loop as it's moving, again, we just lock it, make sure that the teeth are on there. Okay. See how the loop goes back into the body? Which is, if you look at a Bolex, the Bolex has got this same exact system in it. You might recognize it, or the K3 or anything like that. Okay. So now it all moves together. Right, see that? It maintains the loop size. Okay. Under like that. Now, see this guy goes counterclockwise. So this guy's gonna go right counterclockwise. So there's a lot of ways to attach this. You can either bend it a little bit, or you can put a little piece of tape, or you can just use the pressure itself. It's just important that you get a really good bite here, because what'll happen is, no matter how you attach it, if it doesn't bite, this guy will just pull right out and spin in the center. Right? And it'll run for maybe 50 or 100 feet, as this guy's spinning fine, and the film is still taking up, but it's jamming all around here.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll, like, what do you call it, an accordion, so much inside that it won't be able to spin anymore.
Right.
And this happens pretty regularly,
And
especially on the
you'll
early.
hear it, right?
You won't hear it to start with,
Until
right?
it's too
Because
late.
basically when the mag is empty here, there's a lot of space for the film to just spool into. See how it's just spooling in there, no problem?
Right.
And not touching anything? You really want to make sure that you got a good...
Right.
See how I tug on it, it's not coming off.
Yeah. Maybe once that happens, like the footage is still retrievable. It's just a big mess. At that
Well, yes, no.
point. Right.
The footage has been exposed onto the film,
Right.
for sure. If the film is just spaghettied inside, it's definitely retrievable.
Right.
If you take it off later when you're loading it and you drop it all in, it's still retrievable. But once it starts actually crunching and accordioning against the body of the camera,
Right.
the exposure is still in the silver crystals,
Mm-hmm.
but the film base itself is so damaged, you're not going to be able to run it through a scanner.
Makes sense.
Unless you do it frame by frame.
Right.
Which, how many thousands of frames?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the exposure is fine,
crazy.
but the transport system is destroyed.
Right.
Okay. So that's basically it.
It's clean, man.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the magnetic drive system. Let me get the camera. Here's an XTR. The main difference between the XTR and the LTR is this. It's a magnetic drive system, so the magazine doesn't actually engage mechanically with the camera, which it does on all the RE style systems. So there's one little thing to be aware of. Battery goes in the camera, okay. So once the battery is in the camera, okay, right? Okay, so we know the camera works. It's just the video tap is making it stick up like this. See that?
Yep.
See that?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just doing it at this angle so you can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now once the magazine's on, we can flick back one. You hear that little click?
Yeah.
What that is that's the pull down claw finding a perforation to run into, right? Because sometimes even if it's threaded perfectly, if you just shove it in and hit run, the claw won't have enough time to grab a registration hole. And it'll just kind of move in place. And you'll hear a lot of clicking, but the film won't be moving.
Right.
So if you do this little test and let it actually set when you run it, there you go.
Marvelous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your turn. And then we can go over